The ringing in my ears muffled every other sound in the backyard as I stared at my mother's lips forming those familiar words. "Still answering phones, Olivia?" Her voice dripped with the same disappointment I'd heard my entire life. But this time, something inside me shifted, a tectonic plate of patience finally giving way after years of pressure. Behind her, my sister Paige's smirk grew as she placed her designer purse on the picnic table, deliberately knocking my modest pasta salad contribution to the edge. "Mom, guess what? The CEO himself praised my campaign yesterday." My fingers tightened around my plastic cup, the cheap material crackling under the pressure. The lie hung in the air between us, a lie I could disprove with a single word. My vision narrowed to the company letterhead peeking from Paige's purse, the letterhead I had personally approved, the praise that had come from a middle manager, not the CEO. Not from me. The secret that had sustained me through 3 years of family barbecues like this one suddenly felt like a stone in my throat. When my mother's eyes slid dismissively from my face to beam at Paige, the decision crystallized. I watched my hand reach for my phone, my fingers typing the message that would change everything. "Marcus, the Morgan acquisition papers need my signature. The family address is 1742 Oakwood Lane. Annual summer barbecue happening now. Come right away. My name is Olivia, I'm 32, and I secretly own a $500 million company. This is the story of how I stopped hiding my success from the people who had always defined me by my failures. For years, I had maintained a careful deception. While my family believed I was just an administrative assistant answering phones at Thompson Industries, I was actually running the company from behind the scenes. 3 years ago, I had purchased Thompson through a series of shell corporations, carefully keeping my identity hidden from everyone, especially my family. It wasn't that I planned to deceive them forever. It was just easier this way, no expectations, no family members asking for favors or jobs, no sudden shift in how they treated me. I could observe them being their authentic selves, even if their authentic selves were consistently disappointing. My sister Paige had unknowingly been working for me the entire time, climbing what she thought was the corporate ladder, taking credit for other people's work along the way, just as she had done since childhood. My parents had never missed an opportunity to compare us, with me always coming up short. "You should take some business classes," my father suggested, biting into his burger as he joined the conversation. "Your sister's already making 6 figures and you're still pushing papers." I swallowed the words that threatened to escape. "I made 8 figures last year, Dad." Instead, I maintained the same placid smile I'd perfected over years of family gatherings. My simple sundress, deliberately chosen to be unremarkable, suddenly felt like a costume I'd worn for too long. "Actually," Paige continued, preening under our parents' approval, "we are having a huge company meeting next week. The CEO is finally making an appearance. Everyone's so excited." Yes, I had finally decided it was time to step out of the shadows at Thompson Industries. The company had grown significantly under my leadership, and changes were coming that required me to take a more public role. "Will you even get to see the CEO?" my mother asked with manufactured concern. "I mean, from your little desk in the corner." Before I could respond, the distinctive hum of an electric motor cut through the chatter. A sleek black Tesla pulled into the driveway, and my heart stuttered. I recognized that car. What was Marcus doing here? He was Paige's direct supervisor and one of the few people who knew my true identity. Paige straightened, smoothing her hair. "Oh my God, that's my boss. What's he doing here?" Marcus stepped out, looking impeccable in casual weekend wear that probably cost more than my parents' monthly mortgage. His eyes scanned the crowd until they found me, and he smiled broadly. "Madam CEO." he called out, walking toward us. "I didn't expect to see you here today." The hot dog fell from my father's suddenly limp fingers. Paige's face drained of color. My mother's wine glass slipped from her grasp, shattering on the patio with a crash that seemed to echo across the suddenly silent backyard. Time slowed as I watched their expressions transform, confusion giving way to disbelief, then realization. The secret I'd kept for 3 years had just evaporated in 7 syllables. Every relative turned to stare, conversations halting mid-sentence. The only sound was the sizzle of forgotten meat on the grill and the distant laughter of children oblivious to the adult drama unfolding. I took a deep breath, smoothed down my intentionally plain sundress, and smiled. "Hello, Marcus. Welcome to my family's barbecue." The silence that followed was deafening. Years of carefully maintained deception crumbled in an instant. I could feel every eye fixed on me, minds racing to process this revelation. Paige found her voice first, though it came out as more of a squeak. "You're the CEO? But that's impossible. You're just a secretary." I turned to her, maintaining my calm smile. "Actually, Paige, I'm your boss. I own Thompson Industries. Have for the past 3 years." My father's face had turned an interesting shade of purple. "What kind of joke is this?" Marcus stepped forward, his presence adding weight to the revelation. "Oh, it's no joke, sir. Your daughter is one of the most brilliant CEOs I've had the pleasure of working with. Thompson Industries has tripled its market value under her leadership." My mother grabbed the nearest chair for support. "But you bring grocery store pasta salad to family gatherings. You live in that tiny apartment. You wear things from Target." I straightened my shoulders, finally letting a hint of my true self show through. "I choose to live simply, Mom. It doesn't mean I have to." The whispers started spreading through the gathered relatives like wildfire. Aunt Rebecca was frantically Googling Thompson Industries on her phone. Uncle George was choking on his beer. And Paige looked like she might faint. Marcus seemed to realize he had just detonated a bomb in the middle of our family barbecue. He cleared his throat awkwardly. "I apologize if I've overstepped, Madam CEO. I received your text about the Morgan acquisition and came right away. I recognized the address from your emergency contact information in our HR files." Before I could respond, Paige burst out, her voice shrill with disbelief and growing anger. "This is ridiculous. I've been working my ass off for 3 years climbing the corporate ladder, and you've been what? Secretly watching me? Laughing at me behind my back." I met her eyes steadily. "No, Paige. I've been running a company. Your performance reviews, promotions, and salary increases were all based on merit or lack thereof." I paused meaningfully. "Including the times you took credit for your team's work." She flushed deep red. Everyone in the family knew Paige had a habit of claiming others' achievements as her own. She'd been doing it since we were children. "You're lying," my father suddenly announced, his voice gruff with denial. "Our Olivia? She can barely make rent on time." I raised an eyebrow. "That's the story I let you believe, Dad. Would you like to see the paperwork? The bank statements? Perhaps the deed to the building your mortgage pays for?" My mother gasped. "What do you mean?" "I mean," I said carefully, "that I bought this house 3 years ago when the bank was about to foreclose on it. You've been paying rent to one of my holding companies, not a mortgage to the bank." The revelation hit like a physical blow. My father staggered backward, colliding with the grill. Sparks flew up as it tilted, a fitting visual for the chaos unfolding. "Why would you hide something like this?" My mother whispered, tears forming in her eyes. Whether from shock, shame, or a belated recognition of how they'd treated me, I couldn't tell. Marcus, ever the professional, stepped in to save the moment. "I should probably come back another time to discuss the Morgan acquisition. The paperwork isn't urgent, it can wait until Monday." I nodded, grateful for his tact. "Thank you, Marcus." As he returned to his car, my relatives seemed to unfreeze one by one. Aunt Rebecca was the first to approach, her earlier disdain replaced with transparent interest. "Olivia, darling, my Nathan has this wonderful startup idea." I held up a hand, stopping her mid-sentence. "Not today, Aunt Rebecca." Paige remained frozen, her perfect makeup unable to conceal the shock still etched on her face. "All this time," she muttered, "you've been judging me, evaluating me, my own sister." "The same way you've judged me my entire life," I replied evenly. "The difference is, my assessments were based on your actual performance, not on appearances." The barbecue disintegrated after that. Relatives made awkward excuses to leave. My parents moved through their own backyard like strangers, unsure of their place in this new reality. Only my elderly grandmother seemed unfazed, cackling with delight as she patted my hand. "I always knew you were the smart one," she whispered. I left early, driving my modest used car back to my deliberately average apartment. Tomorrow would bring changes, corporate adjustments, family dynamics shifting like tectonic plates, the inevitable phone calls and apologies and requests. But tonight, I needed one last evening in the simple life I'd constructed. As I changed out of my sundress, I caught my reflection in the mirror. For the first time in years, I stood straight, no longer making myself smaller, less visible. I took the family photo out of its frame and dropped it in the shredder. Then I opened my laptop and began my day as I had for the past 3 years, running my company, making decisions, and finally living my truth. The weeks following the barbecue revelation were a whirlwind of uncomfortable family dynamics and corporate adjustments. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from relatives I hadn't heard from in years, each one suddenly remembering our special bond and having a brilliant business proposition to discuss. Aunt Rebecca called about her son's startup. Uncle George wanted to review our corporate legal contracts. Even my mother's bridge club members started showing up at Thompson Industries' reception desk, claiming to be close family friends. I instructed security to turn them all away. The most dramatic transformation was in my parents' behavior. My mother started showing up at my downtown office with homemade lunches, trying to make up for years of neglect with chicken sandwiches and guilt-laden apologies. "I just don't understand why you felt you couldn't tell us," she said one day, rearranging the family photos she'd brought to brighten up my office. I'd thrown them away as soon as she left. "Really, Mum? Remember my college graduation when Paige got a car for making Dean's List, and I got a lecture about wasting my time with business courses instead of finding a husband?" She had the grace to look embarrassed. "We just wanted what was best for you." "No," I corrected her. "You wanted what looked best to others." My father took a different approach. He started bombarding me with newspaper clippings about Thompson Industries, as if I might have missed the news about my own company. Each article came with his handwritten notes in the margins. "My daughter did this. Olivia's company. That's my girl." The same daughter he'd called useless just weeks before. Paige's situation proved the most challenging. After her transfer to the satellite office across town, she filed a formal complaint alleging familial discrimination. Our HR department, unaware of her relationship to me since I had kept that information confidential in our personnel records, conducted a thorough investigation. The results weren't what she expected. The investigation revealed multiple instances of her taking credit for subordinates' work, manipulating timesheets, and using company resources for personal projects. The evidence was damning enough that instead of firing her, I gave her a choice: resign with a decent reference or face a very public termination. She resigned the next day, though not without a final dramatic scene in my office. "You're ruining my life," she screamed, mascara running down her cheeks. "After everything I've done for this company." I remained seated, calm. "Everything you've done? You mean like taking credit for the Johnson campaign that your assistant designed? Or perhaps you're referring to the expense reports you've been falsifying." That's normal business practice." "No, Paige, that's fraud." I slid a folder across my desk. "Here's your resignation letter. I've already signed the reference that confirms you worked here and left voluntarily. It's more than you deserve, but I'm doing it because despite everything, you're still my sister." She snatched the folder, her hands shaking. "You think you're so perfect now, don't you? The big CEO looking down on everyone else." "No," I replied quietly. "I think I'm someone who finally stopped letting this family define my worth." After she left, I received a series of angry texts from my parents demanding I fix things with Paige. They had learned about her resignation when she showed up at their house in tears, telling them I had forced her out. I responded with screenshots of her fraudulent reports and a simple message: "Would you prefer I press charges instead?" They stopped texting after that. 6 months after the barbecue revelation, I attended another family gathering, Thanksgiving, at my parents' house. This time, I arrived in my Tesla, wearing clothes that reflected my actual status. I had finally moved from my modest apartment to a penthouse overlooking the city, embracing the lifestyle my success had earned. The difference in how I was treated was both amusing and sad. Relatives who had once ignored me now hung on my every word. Aunt Rebecca bragged to her friends about her CEO niece. Uncle George prominently displayed a newspaper article about Thompson Industries on the mantelpiece. Paige didn't attend. She'd taken a job at a smaller company, having learned that her family name no longer carried the weight it once did. I heard through the grapevine that she was actually doing well, finally having to rely on her own merits rather than family connections. As we sat down to dinner, my mother clinked her glass for attention. "I'd like to make a toast," she announced, her voice trembling slightly. "To Olivia, who showed us all that success doesn't always look the way we expect it to." I raised my glass with the others but added my own quiet addendum, and to authenticity, which matters more than appearances. Later that evening, as I prepared to leave, my father caught me by the door. He looked older, more uncertain than I'd ever seen him. "I was wrong," he said simply. "About everything about you." I nodded, accepting his words but not offering absolution. Some wounds take longer to heal than others. The following Monday morning, I was back in my corner office overlooking the city skyline. I sat reviewing quarterly reports and thinking about how life had changed. My assistant buzzed in, "Your mother's here again with lunch." I smiled slightly. "Tell her I'm in a meeting." I had a business to run after all. As I turned back to my work, I caught my reflection in the window, confident, powerful, no longer hiding who I was. The secretary was gone, replaced by a woman who had learned that the best revenge isn't wealth or success, but finally, unapologetically being yourself. On my desk sat a frame with a new photo, not of family but of my corporate team at our last charity event. These were the people who valued me for my actual contributions, not for the expectations I could or couldn't meet. I picked up the phone to call Marcus about the Morgan acquisition that we had postponed from that fateful barbecue day. The deal was finally ready to close after 6 months of negotiations. It was time to expand again. After all, success doesn't need an audience. It just needs conviction and maybe, sometimes, a dramatic reveal at a family barbecue.